Hey, aloha mai kākou. Mahalo for joining us today for the HŌʻIHI pre-proposal video conference. As you should see on your screen when you join, we are recording and transcribing this session primarily for the purposes of our note-taking on comments later, but we will also post the presentation portion of this recording on our website for viewing later. If you choose not to or prefer not to be recorded, then you're also welcome to leave and you could view the presentation later. We'll give people another minute to join. We have more people joining in. Mahalo, everyone.
Hey, aloha mai kākou. We might as well just go ahead and get started. And then folks will trickle in and then we'll just give them reminders as we go. So aloha awakea. My name is Brad Ka'alele Wong with the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, Department of Interior. And thanks for everybody for coming on today to discuss our HŌʻIHI grant program. And you know, all the awesome work that we're trying to see happen with the Native Hawaiian community. Also from Department of Interior, Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, we have Stanton Inamoto. He's our Senior Program Director. We have Lisa Oshiro Suganuma, who is our policy person here at Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, and then Ka'iini Kimo Kaloi out in DC as well. So that's our 4-person team. Yeah. Also from Department of Interior, we have Jessica Highland over there. She's in DC as well right now, and she's from our friends over at the Interior Business Center, and they help a lot with Office of Native Hawaiian Relations grants processes and other things related to grants. So she's actually going to be one of our point people and technical experts for our HŌʻIHI grant for things like for information and things. So she'll be helping us along through our grant process. Couple of housekeeping things for you guys. We will be recording this presentation and it will be posted online on our ONHR website, just for folks that did end up missing it. They can view it again to get more information. The Q&A portion, however, will be it will be recorded, but just for transcription purposes, and so we can make sure we get everybody's questions and get it into a FAQ sheet. We'll post that frequently asked questions sheet online as well on top of our website there. And yeah, and of course, if anybody has questions besides asking them out, we'll have that. You can always put it in the chat. You can also email us on our website as well, or email myself directly. I'll have the contacts at the end, so you can do all those things, whichever is best for you guys. So same thing. Keep as Lisa mentioned earlier, please keep your microphones muted, and we'll save Q&A for the end. But when we get to that, so just be respectful of folks' time. Use the raise hand function to ask a question, or type it in the chat function. And then again, like I said, presentation and question and answers will be posted to our website, www.doi.gov/Hawaiian/HŌʻIHI, and we'll have information on there. Okay. So just a little bit of session overview for you guys. So just a little bit of background on the Native Act, which is where the funding of our HŌʻIHI grant program comes from, the overview of our grant, and our 2023 priorities, the key provisions that we have in the notice of funding, as well as some of our priorities, and recap of important reminders and deadlines, and we'll have the Q&A at the end. So this is how we're going. All right. So to get into the background of the Native Act, Senator Schatz sponsored this act. And this is something that he wanted to see was and the acronym for Native is the Native American Tourism and Improving Visitor Experience Act. So one couple of the purposes that it has is to encourage Native Hawaiian organizations to engage more fully in tourism activities to increase visitation, and also to provide grants, loans, and technical assistance to Native Hawaiian organizations. In Hawaii, I guess, we have a little bit other issue instead of getting tourism here in Hawaii. That's never been an issue for Hawaii, but the way that we manage tourism is something more along the lines of what we look towards. And so for further key provisions, taking actions to help empower Native Hawaiian organizations to showcase the heritage, foods, traditions, histories, and continued vitality of the Native Hawaiian community. So these are further provisions. And further to support efforts of the Native Hawaiian organizations to identify and enhance or maintain traditions and cultural features that are important to sustain the distinctiveness of the Hawaiian community, and also to provide visitor experiences that are authentic and respectful. Finally, to enhance efforts to promote understanding and respect for diverse cultures and subcultures in the United States, and the relevance of those cultures to the national brand of the United States. So this is just some background for where our HŌʻIHI money comes from. In general, it was to kind of create this national tourism strategy. A lot of the other Native American communities, to help them to kind of see, not only to gain tourism, but to kind of maintain our traditional background, our traditional history. Yeah. So for us at Native Hawaiian Relations, we created our HŌʻIHI grant program to implement the Native Act. And for us, we wanted to kind of stick to our traditional roots as far as what we want to see from tourism. E hōʻihi aku, e hōʻihi mai was something that was important for us to kind of use as our foundation, as our vision. And that would be to, if folks show respect, then you would get respect as well. Yeah. So this represents our core principles of the program. And through showing respect, visitors can then be welcomed as guests with shared kuleana in perpetuating the values and importance of Native Hawaiian traditional knowledge and cultural practices. As I had mentioned before, our program partners, the Department of Interior Business Center, they're one of our program partners for this, and they provide administrative and grant support for the program. We also have assistance from Tribal Tech and the Office of Indian Economic Development to provide technical assistance for HŌʻIHI grant applicants. We're currently working on that aspect for folks to help them get through the grant process. However, myself, Jessica, and others at the IBC are more than capable of continuing to provide answers to for folks' questions. The overall program goals is to of our HŌʻIHI program are pretty much straightforward from the Native Act, which is to showcase the heritage, places, art, food, traditions, histories, and continuing vitality of the Native Hawaiian community. To identify, enhance, revive, or maintain loʻeau, our cultural traditions, our wahi kupuna and our wahi pana that are important to sustain the distinctiveness of the Native Hawaiian community. And finally, to provide for authentic and respectful visitor experiences here in Hawaii. So yeah, again, just pretty much directly from the Native Act. As we implement these larger program goals for fiscal year 2023, we want it to be a little bit more specific as to what we what we see from applicants. And so our 2023 program priorities, you can again, you guys can check it out in the NOFO. We also have it up online as well. But first, our first priority to uplift, perpetuate, and in some cases revive traditional Native Hawaiian practices by creating opportunities for demonstrations, visitor education on history, usage, and protocols, or hands-on visitor participation experiences in the culture practice. The second one is to support the maintenance, enhancement, and protection of Hawaii's natural resources, wahi kupuna and wahi pana, at areas impacted by tourism. Third, to enhance the entrepreneurial capacity for the Native Hawaiian community by helping create business opportunities in the visitor industry, offering business development training or stimulating economic activity. And finally, to undertake related activities with visitors that can convey respect and reaffirm the principle of reciprocation to the place, resources, and traditional knowledge holders and practices. For the purposes of our program priorities for 2023, you don't need to have meet all of them. Just meet at least one of them, as well as the goals of our larger HŌʻIHI program in general, which are the goals of the Native Act. So just meeting at least one of these program priorities. In the specific notice of funding, you can go directly to www.grants.gov. We have a link directly on our website, so check it out on there. You can also find it on grants.gov if you search for HŌIHI, or if you search this funding opportunity listed right there. You guys, the title of the opportunity is Fiscal Year 2023 HŌIHI Native Act Grant Program for Native Hawaiian Organizations. The total funding we have this year is $1 million. The floor is $50,000 for a grant, and with a ceiling of $200,000, which that amount can be used for up to 3 years from the start date. And so basically, we're estimating grants between $100,000 and $120,000, with basically about 7 to 10 grant awards given out. So that's what we have for 2023. Some other significant dates for the notice of funding. We have the closing date will be June 21st. If you look in the chat, Lisa just posted the funding opportunity in there. Closing date will be June 21st, 2023, right on Ke'ala Hiva Akane. And if you have any questions up until then, please just, we would love to hear any questions or concerns about leading up to it. Application submittals will be on everything will be through grants.gov, which requires a registration. So do that as soon as possible so you can get into grants.gov. Anticipated award date is August 21st, 2023. Again, the grant period is 1 to 3 years. One extra note about the closing date. I think I had it listed as 11:59 p.m. on June 21st. So pretty much right up until the next day. Okay, just a little bit, some details within the notice of funding, and you can look in there as far as what we need to include in, what you guys need to include in an application. We're also putting together a checklist for an application, so keep an eye out for that in the next week or two. As far as the checklist, to make sure you guys have everything listed. So as far as the notice of funding in the section D2, we have the statement of need. Why is this project necessary? How does it advance the Native Act and the HŌIHI grant program? Project goals and objectives. Basically, what are your guys' projects? What are you guys looking to do? How are you guys addressing? What HŌIHI priority are you addressing? How are you addressing it? The schedule and milestones, a work plan. So providing a work plan, describing activities, what you guys are going to do, schedule and milestones, providing the schedule for when things will be accomplished, monitoring and evaluation. How will the work be monitored? Are there any evaluations for success? And then description of entities. So, describing yourselves, your folks as partners, key individuals. And this is where you attest that your organization meets the definitions of an NHO in the Native Act. And I'll get to that in the next slide. And then finally, another one with reciprocation and sustainability, and describe how your activities will convey respect and reciprocity with visitors in the community. And then if your project is site specific, provide a location, address, description, and map. And then site access and control. This is where we have several questions about federal compliance. And so if applicable, please answer those questions within your application, if they are applicable. And then finally, detailed budget proposals. So there's a separate SF-424. There's a separate budget form that you need to fill out, which is a federal requirement, but we're also asking folks to include a budget narrative for those budgeted items. So a couple things that just to remember, we don't need to write in length, but just be very clear and concise about your folks' project. Things that I've seen in other grant proposals. Tables are great. I think there's 44 people on this call right now. So say all 44 people submitted an application. That's 44 applications that the reviewers got to review. So while I love reading, that's a lot of stuff to remember. So things like tables are really great for your guys' work planning and activities and project schedule, just to help it make it clear as far as what you guys are going to do, and what you guys see. So those are some notes that I had for us. So some other application details. We do have a specific provision within the Native Act that defines Native Hawaiian organization. So for folks that are considering applying, you will need to meet these requirements, and just include them within the that section describing the organization. So Native Hawaiian organization, as defined in the Native Act, is a nonprofit organization that serves the interests of Native Hawaiians, in which Native Hawaiians serve in substantive and policy-making positions. And finally, that is recognized for having expertise in Native Hawaiian cultural heritage, including tourism. Again, documentation of a 501c3 status from the IRS is another requirement for an application. I mentioned earlier the SF-424A budget information form. That's a federal form that's required for folks to submit. And if you need assistance on that, please reach out, because I've seen folks put all kinds of numbers in all kinds of different ways. But if you need help with it, just reach out and let us know. There's a conflict of interest disclosure as well that needs to be filled out. I do have a note here about SAM.gov registration, and SAM.gov is another requirement, another federal requirement. So I have that starred right now because a lot of folks have issues with that. Or have had issues recently with that. So if you haven't gotten registered yet with SAM.gov or haven't gotten your organization registered, please do so, as soon as possible. That's something that, it says it only takes 10 to 15 business days, but I've heard the registration process takes a bit longer than that. It is not a requirement to apply for funding. So, even if you don't have the registration complete yet, you can still apply. However, it is a requirement for receiving the funds. So, but in general, please just try to register for SAM.gov as soon as can. Jessica, did you, this is where I wanted to kind of call on you. Did you have anything additional to add about SAM.gov? I know you have a little bit more experience with that.
You're doing great. I think you're hitting all the main points. So it is SAM.gov. What this is a system for award management, and all federal entities are registered in there, whether you're grants or contracts. And so what that's going to do is give you a unique identifier for the government, a number. That's the important piece of information that you want to have. And what Brad is saying is that the unique identifying number, people have been having a hard time getting that in 10 to 15 days. So what will happen if you're up against the deadline for application and you don't have that is you will submit with your application what you do have. Any kind of letter you've gotten from them saying, yes, you've registered and we're working on it, any screenshot you have saying you've done everything that you can, if you've got a help desk ticket. So submit that with your application so that we know that you're working on it, so that if the application goes through the merit review process and is successful, we're able to work with you guys to make the award as easily and quickly as possible. And so that's going to be the important information that we're going to need going through the merit review process, is whatever you have. I really hope that everybody's going to be able to work on that right away, which shouldn't cause any issues come June, but we can address that as needed. And then we will also have an FAQ on the website that Brad's been referencing. And so if anybody, and so don't worry about feeling disadvantaged if you're not sure, if someone else has asked a question, you're not getting the information. What will happen is, as questions come in, we will add to that FAQ so that everyone is getting the information that's coming into us, so that everyone has an equal chance come merit review. So this is going to be as easy and as open as possible. And so grants.gov is for the application, sam.gov is for your unique federal identifying number, and RAD is for everything else. That help at all?
No, that was perfect. Thanks, Jessica. Let's see. The next thing on here is I have is federal compliance, and I've mentioned this a few times. Specifically for folks that do AINA restoration projects. So, for instance, we one of our grantees right now is ʻŌlelo o Maui. They're doing restoration work on ʻŌIHI fish pond on the island of Maui in Kihei. For their project, right, because they're doing restoration on the site itself, well, we have to do environmental compliance work. So, and that's Endangered Species Act, Section 7, National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, as well as the Environmental Protection Act. So we have to. So for us, because this is federal money, we as a federal agency need to work with the grantee and whoever the project person is to fulfill some of these requirements. And so some of those so there will be further questions I think needed within the NOFO itself and the application process. We've asked a few questions to try to clarify some of your guys' projects, what you're going to do if they are something related to AINA. So that should help us with some of the federal compliance issues or completing this. However, we probably will need further discussion on federal compliance if your project does end up being successful as far as receiving funding. Specifically, things like Section 106 does take some time. So that's something, maybe to think about within, your application or timeline process. And if you have questions about that, we're totally, please reach out to myself on that. And again, please check the notice of funding for additional application requirements. If you do have any questions, please reach out. So for the evaluation criteria, one thing I did want to note, as far as sorry, back to this other slide on application details. As far as the budget, we don't require any matching funds, so you don't need to include that within your budget proposal at all. In fact, it's probably preferred you don't include it at all, because it just makes it a little more difficult on makes it more difficult on your end, because the federal government will hold you to that matching amount. So You know, we don't require it, so don't even consider putting it in. And I see Jessica just put in sam.gov registration within the chat for you guys. So for the evaluation criteria and scoring, we revamped it a little bit from last year, although it's pretty similar kind of scoring breakdown. There's a further breakdown within the notice of funding. In general, we have a technical American project goals, which is 30 points, work plan and project schedule, it's 25, monitoring and evaluation, 15, qualifications, 10, and budget, 20. There's a further breakdown if you look inside the notice of funding. So please check that out. And that's how we'll be scoring your guys' projects. So that's something that's useful for you guys when you're applying. The evaluation committee will be, you know, between 5 and 8 folks, and we'll begin looking at applications pretty much right after the submission deadline. So we'll get to it right when we're able to. Okay, so just to recap, applications must meet at least one of the 2023 program priorities, as well as the purposes of the Native Act. Proposal submittal deadline is June 21st, 2023. Proposal submittals, everything must be through grants.gov. So go ahead, and if you haven't done so, or if your organization hasn't done so already, please go ahead and register through that. And within grants.gov, you'll have all the different SF424 forms that are required, where you can upload attachments and things like that. And again, if you have questions about that, ask us, or specifically about grants.gov, there's a help page on there as well that you can check with. So further, just be mindful of the various requirements for the project narrative, budget, and all the other documents. So please check that within the notice of funding. Again, like I had mentioned earlier, we're going to have a checklist within the next week or two. So check back on our website for that information. Total funding will be $1 million, with the grant floor and ceiling being between $50,000 as the floor and $200,000 for the ceiling, which can be used from 1 to 3 years. We anticipate award date to be about August 25th, or sometime by the end of August. We'll have awards out, or at least an announcement for the awards. So that's kind of what we're looking at for that. Okay, HŌʻIHI, hey Nino. So this kind of brings us to our Q&A portion. I'd love to hear, enough of me talking, I'd love to hear more from you guys, if you guys have questions and things. So, you know, again, please raise your hand if you have a question, or type it in the chat and we'll get to you. But please be respectful that there's others here, but I think I left it, you know, we have enough, I think we have enough time for folks to ask Q&A. So we'll just go to that